So we just heard Benjamin Netanyahu talk about Iran and how much they need to take care of it, and they had that whole bombing campaign they did earlier last week, and it's going to continue. And obviously, we fund that. The U.S. funds Israeli weaponry, and we know all that stuff. Like that's we know how much money they get. It's some outrageous number since 1948, but we know during the Obama term it was something around, what's the exact number? I don't want to get the exact number wrong. Was it 2.3 billion a year? They ended up with some crazy amount of money. I got all these numbers in my head. They get the most money out of any country. Any country that we give aid to, they get the most from. 10-year Israel. 10-year Israel money from U.S. $3.8 billion. So it was a $38 billion 10-year contract. So that would end in the like 2030. That would end, and then they'd re-up. But we've given them other forms of money, in between then. So we just heard exactly what Benjamin Netanyahu said, that we need to continue this fight against Iran. We need to make sure that we take down these tyrants with the U.S. Secretary right next to them. And what do you know? Jordan Peterson, the guy that works for the Daily Wire under Ben Shapiro, who introduced him to Benjamin Netanyahu, who he had on his podcast, who he's been to dinner with 3 times, has the exact same thought. The exact same words. This is on his podcast, so this is like you have to pay for it. So he's telling his listeners this. 1.1 million views on this, by the way.
If any of you have been particularly taken by this story today, you could always put pen to paper and write your congressman or your senator and let them know that you're not all that happy about the situation in Iran, and that if the politicians got their act together and were stalwart in their opposition to this fundamentalist, totalitarian, misogynistic, brutal regime, that maybe it could be pushed over, and that would be a nice object lesson to totalitarian tyrants everywhere in the world. If any of you have been particularly taken by this story today, you could always put pen to paper and write your congressman or your senator and let them know that you're not all that happy about the situation in Iran, and that if the politicians got their act together and were stalwart in their opposition to this fundamentalist, totalitarian, misogynistic, brutal regime, that maybe it could be pushed over, and that would be a nice object lesson to totalitarian tyrants everywhere.
So write your congressman, to get bills going so we can get more money to Israel, so we can wipe Iran off the face of the earth, bomb the shit out of them, start another war for Israel. I mean, people confuse shill, grifter all the time. That's what a shill is. You've been paid by Ben Shapiro. You've been told what to say by Benjamin Netanyahu, and you go on your podcast and regurgitate it. Now, he actually had a back and forth with this guy. And let me just see if I can find all the different things. They had a little back and forth on Twitter because Jordan Peterson kind of like backtracks, and it's like, well, it's so misogynistic. It's like, okay, so there's misogyny there, so we just start bombing them? Like, what is, like, no, you just took what Netanyahu told you to say, and you regurgitated it to your quote-unquote conservative followers, Christian followers, for the love of Israel and for another war for us to get involved in. Israel has so many weapons. They have the best tech industry. They're formidable. If they want to go out of their way and start a big thing with fucking Iran, they can go do it. But they won't do it unless we just give them our full support and just bend over for them. Literally bend over for them and do it for them.
Jordan Peterson has called for the West to embark on...
Now, I don't care about this part, but did have a little back and forth between these guys. So, Dr. Jordan Peterson says, I've read this a couple of times and failed to understand your point. Is this a pro-Iranian theocracy comment? Or is it somehow about what I hypothetically think about women? Dude, everybody knows that the criticism of that is you saying right to your congressman so we can basically wipe Iran out by helping Israel. Sure, happy to clarify classified documents. You're calling for the U.S. intervention to topple a foreign government, also known as regime change, which is probably the most reliably insane thing the U.S. government ever does. And you frame it as some sort of great moral crusade to impose gender equity. Good response. I mean, even when Cernovich is coming out and going against you, I mean, you know it's bad. And we all know about the meeting in Israel with Netanyahu, and then all of a sudden they've had 3 dinners together. He's been on the podcast. It's just this huge love fest between them. And we'll get into the triad in a second here. Sorry if Jordan Peterson stuff is boring, but this guy has influence over people. People are like, he says all these like totalitarian, Machiavellian, psychopathic. He says all these things and people start buying into it. And he even had another thing the other day where he's talking about, you know what? I'm going to set up my own alternative to the World Economic Forum. And I'm like, what? Like, he just sprinkled that in the other day. Like, what the fuck are you talking about, dude? Now, you guys know my stance. He's actually delusional. All the benzos caught up to him. His brain is fried. And he's literally not just he's not rehab because he's still on and off using. You can just tell by the suits he's wearing. You would never wear those if you were in the right frame of mind. But it wasn't rehab. It was more like a reprogramming. Dr. Peterson laid out his plan to take on globalists, telling Joe Rogan in an extended interview that he is considering starting a populist alternative to the World Economic Forum. Peterson told Rogan that he will be gathering a consortium. Jesus Christ, I can't spell, talk, speak, whatever. Consortium this October, November in London as kind of a rival to the WEF. This group will discuss 6 questions pertaining to the global philosophy and policy. While the first conference will be invite only, it will be public, and Peterson noted that if successful, he would like to expand it yearly. Oh yeah, we need this guy who's literally a fucking shill for Israel doing a pro-World Economic Forum. See how that paradigm works out. I mentioned the suits, so I just gotta explain the suits really quick. Look how much of a fucking douchebag this guy is. Just imagine being this douchebag. That's not his wife.
Oh no! Let's hear.
Just by the way, that's not his wife. His wife is a fucking ghost. His wife is a specter who haunts his house.
Oh no! Let's hear the story of the. Is it indecision that made you do this?
So this is a heaven and hell suit, and one side's got goat skin and the other side's got lamb skin. You look like a fucking retard, dude.
I should tell you about my suit first. Maybe you care about that. Maybe you don't. First thing
We don't.
you need to know is these are tiny Elon Musk heads.
Oh, that's cool. The guy that fucked up Twitter even worse than it was. Awesome.
And this is a Twitter suit. In the lining here, there's a bunch of comments from Twitter about another suit this company made for me. This company is
You mean Twitter, the place you hate going on because there's messianic, psychopathic, dark triad lols culture? We're gonna get to that. That'll be the last clip of the night, because I would kind of even us out at an hour and 15 for a nice little stream on a Wednesday night. Then we can come back tomorrow night with a whole different topic. I'm still thinking back from 3 days ago. I can't get that story of that LGBTQ couple out of my head with the kids. That was such a dark fucking... That was rough. But really quick, just say, that's not Jordan Peterson's wife. His wife actually is a living entity. Did she die? I don't know if she died. Is Jordan Peterson's wife still alive? Or is it Owen's dog or something? I don't know. I don't want to speak ill of the dead here. But before she was dead, she was an entity, specter, haunting the house, very demonic shit going on. And that's when all the problems started. Oh, no, she's still alive. Okay. So, I mean, I still would have definitely kept going if she wasn't alive, but I just wanted to know. So we'll get to the he had an appearance on on Joe Rogan this week, and you can just, if you go back to 5 years ago, his first appearance, and then you go to maybe his third appearance when the abuse got really bad, and then you go to this latest appearance, you can literally see the mental decline. And this one clip from it, this isn't it, the next video after this is going to be the clip of him talking about how his free speech is so important, because the reason he went on the show was because his clinical license is in question, and he has to go talk to a panel of people because of things he's been saying on Twitter, and he's framing it as, they just don't like my free speech, and I retweeted something about Trudeau, and I'm thinking in my head, no, dude, they're seeing you rambling on and on some pretty fucking crazy shit for a psychologist. If you were just a normal guy, I don't think they would bother you. Canada's a little weird anyways, but maybe the clinical board doesn't want someone like you actually treating patients because you're in treatment yourself. That makes more sense to me. I mean, you guys can discuss amongst yourselves if you guys think it's a free speech issue or if they just looked at what he's saying and going, maybe this guy shouldn't actually be taking patients in, which he doesn't do anyways. So it's all for show to talk about his free speech, and then he adds in why others shouldn't have free speech, especially if you're anonymous online. And even Joe Rogan's like, well, what if people have a job? What if people can't have the real name out there? And he's like, no, it's just a fucking attack me. It's all about him. It's a selfish attitude. And he doesn't even realize he's doing it. But I just want to play this quick because shout out to Fate of Kings. Love this.
Jordan Peterson.
Jordan Peterson.
Jordan Peterson.
Jordan B. Peterson.
Jordan Peterson.
Jordan Peterson.
Jordan Peterson.
Welcome back, Mr. Peterson.
And so we're like, what's going on with this family? And we looked into it, and things were not what they seemed.
Hi everybody, my name's Michaela Peterson. So I have a family update.
There's this idea that hell is a bottomless pit. That's what the religious people have always said. Life is suffering.
The reason we're in New York is because Dad's in rehab.
We had some apple cider that had sulfites in it, and that was really not good. Like, I was done for a month.
We didn't think much of it at the time.
It produced an overwhelming sense of impending doom.
It was unbearable. I didn't sleep for 2 days when we found out.
I didn't sleep for 25 days. I didn't sleep at all.
I've never seen my dad like this.
How is that possible? That
I'll tell you how it's possible. You lay in bed, frozen in something approximating terror for 8 hours, and then you get up.
Oh my God.
Oh, yeah. Stop saying things you know to be lies.
Mom and Dad walked around in a stupor. It was not good.
There's some black magic going on in this house. A demon has possessed the household of the Petersons.
I didn't want to be there. I didn't want to be in the same city. I wanted to go to the other side of the world and hide and cry.
And he's walking the baby into the woods. Now, why would you ever take a baby that...
Okay, my favorite part is Red Bar. Why would you ever take a baby that far into the woods?
Into the woods. Now, why would you ever take a baby that deep into the forest?
And my father had it, and his father had it. It's all just rife in my family. Clean up your room.
I didn't get my period this summer until we found out Mom's going to be okay. She almost died a number of times.
So she passed away years ago. You don't see her out of the house. You don't see her off the property. She can't leave that property.
So let this be a warning.
Look the fuck out.
I look forward to meeting some of you people.
Demonic shit, man. It's a fucking demonic household. See, this has to me rethink the not just the drug abuse, guys. I mean, you're talking about 10 years, you're gonna see celebrity hauntings, fucking Jordan Peterson and his wife that somehow is still alive, even though she had what do they call it? Like, terminal illness. She was gonna, like, die within a year, and this sent him into a spiral, yet she's, like, alive and fine now. The whole thing's weird. So, he goes on Joe Rogan. Let me just explain this to you really quick. Literally calls it the Dark Triad. Now, the Dark Triad, for people that aren't like a fucking nerd fucking person that spends way too much time looking into shit like me. The Dark Triad basically is like if you have 3 of these negative personality traits, and it's just if you're a narcissist and a psychopath and you're Machiavellian at the same time. Now, best way to explain it: narcissism, entitled self-importance. Machiavellianism could be boiled down to like strategic exploiting of people, very deceitful. And obviously we know what a psychopath is, like very callous, cynicism. There is kind of like a movie aspect where they say psychopaths don't have any emotions, or they can't feel emotions. That's more of a sociopath. A psychopath can have emotions, or at least feign them. But I'm not going to get too deep into that. But he compares this like very dark triad of things that usually ends up in people like killing each other, like very fucking harmful people, to people online making fun of him. And it's just where he like equates the two is just the insanity that he's been brought to.
If you're dating a narcissist or in a relationship with a narcissist, they'll alienate all your family members and your friends so that they get all the attention. And that'll just be the first of the games they play with you.
Yeah.
Then you have psychopathy, and the psychopaths are parasitical predators. And so the predator will take whatever you've got, and the parasite will live off you. And then here's a parasitical ideological statement: property is theft. A classic mark.
So like he can start off by saying like grand ideologies, and they're true. Like what he's saying in the beginning is very true. Like if you're dating a narcissist, not good. If you're dating a fucking psychopath, not good. How it can grow into a larger ideology if you have a leader of a country that has all of these trademarks. It's not going to end very well. It's when he compares it to people that are anonymous on Twitter where you lose me.
Marxist trope. Why would you say?
And he's wearing his gay suit as well. And he like showed it off in the beginning, and Joe Rogan like acted like he gave a fuck.
Say that. Well, if I want to live off you, the way I'm going to justify that ethically is by claiming, well, you know, Joe, look how privileged you are. You've got all this money. You just took that from the oppressed. And if I'm manipulating you so that I get some of your money, that's only just because, first of all, it's exactly what you did. And second of all, well, why not spread some of that wealth around? So that's Machiavellianism, narcissism, and psychopathy, Dark Triad.
Dark Triad. It sounds cool, to be honest. Like part of the Dark Triad.
Man. And that usually has to do with something like the threat of physical intervention. You know how it is if you get a bunch of guys together. And so part of what keeps dialogue among men civilized is the possibility that it won't be civilized if it goes too sideways. And everybody knows that. But there is none of that online, because anybody...
Okay, so here we go. Here's his big online, I'm being tired of being made fun of, so I'm gonna compare you to these psychopathic, Machiavellian, narcissistic people that could end up killing millions of people in a country. He'll compare it to the Holocaust, obviously. And he also calls it lulz culture. Doing it for the lulz. These people need to be exterminated off the internet. But he made a compromise. He said, since I'm Jordan Peterson, and people know I'm Jordan Peterson, then my free speech is safe online because you know who I am. We need to separate people that are anonymous and have it known that they're anonymous, and their speech doesn't get as much reach as somebody that's not anonymous. This is Mr. Free Speech, remember. This is like the guy that built his fucking career on free speech.
They can post anything about anyone, no matter how denigrating and derisive, especially if they do it anonymously, and there's zero consequence. In fact, quite the opposite. If they're good at it, they get a lot of attention, and the social media companies will monetize it. And so not only is it not inhibited, it's actually facilitated. And this isn't a trivial problem, because if the psychopaths multiply enough.
So he's just generalizing that anyone that's anonymous online is a psychopath. This is delusional thinking. Just so we all are on the same page. This is delusional. Are we all on the same page that this is delusional thinking? There has to be someone in here that listens to Jordan Peterson. There has to be. There has to be.
They take the whole society out. So I think virtualization enables psychopathy. And it's worse than just the trolling bit. That's bad enough, because it pollutes political dialogue and it makes everyone think that everything is more unstable than it really is. But online criminality is actually a terrible plague. You know, I don't think there's an old...
Okay, you can't compare online criminals that are doing phishing schemes anonymous and stealing money from old people to people making fun of you online. So that's a delusional jump.
Knows how much money's in their bank account and who's doing everything they possibly can at every second to leverage access to it. That's just happening continually. So
well, that's certainly algorithms, right? For a lot of people that get trapped into these sort of situations where people are constantly throwing at them things that are opportunities for them to either make money or get this or
get
avoid
a refund
pain.
or
Get a refund.
You bet. Or they befriend them. You know, they get it in, and some lonely old character who's not functioning cognitively quite like he used to, you know, he gets sucked in by someone pretending to be his friend and offered a great investment opportunity. And it's very, very, very difficult to track this sort of thing online. So
it goes off on this tangent about, like, actual criminality, right? Like, of course, we all agree that's a fucking problem. No one's disagreeing with that. But he leads you there to lead you to, well, those people are anonymous, so if we have anonymous people on Twitter and they're allowed to just say things that could hurt other people's feelings, we gotta separate those people. When I thought his idea the whole time was, we need to have, what is it, the battlefield of ideas that these people used to love to talk about? The town square where we all get together and no one should be censored unless they actually break the law and everyone has a voice. I guess that changes when people dislike what you say. Because he was riding very high. Now, like, me and Feta Kings were very early. We put that video out like 4 years ago of the trailer, and like it got like a lot of fucking hate. Like, people did not like you making fun of Jordan Peterson back then. You make that video today, people are gonna have a fun laugh at it, no big deal. Like, I remember like 5 years ago saying something about Crowder, or saying something about Jordan Peterson, or saying something about any of these people, you'd get fucking disliked. The comments would be full, what have you done? You know, all this shit, what have you done? It's like, he's not even fucking American, Jordan Peterson, or Steven Crowder. They're both fucking Canadian. What have they done? What have they done? Honestly, if you really think about it.
you get the real enabling of the criminals, because how the hell, if they're anonymous, how the hell do you keep them, you know, how do you hold them to account? But, and then a secondary derivation of that is something like trolling. And that's really not so good either, because if the psychopathic, narcissistic, Machiavellian sadists are dominating the political discourse.
Ooh, we added in sadists too. Nice. Just threw in sadists to that one. Just throw a sadist in there. That's fine. It's a triad, so that's 3, but I guess he just made it a quad.
Then ordinary people look at that and think, oh my God, everything's going to hell. Everyone's really extreme, and really it's a non-random sample. And so, you know, I can really see this in my own life, you know, because...
Here we go. Back to what it really is all about. I can really see this in my own life. So you don't care about if it happens to someone else like that you don't like. Let's say everyone on the left because you work for the Daily Wire, and all you guys ever talk about is how the left is doing this and the left is doing that. But I guess it's fine if they're not anonymous, right? So, like, a person, an actual person with a blue check mark that's pushing some transgender idea, they're fine because they're not anonymous, so they must not be a psychopath, Machiavellian, sadist psychopath, right? Say your logic is flawed, Dr. Peterson, and you see how when my PhD comes out, it can debunk your ideas very quickly.
If you just looked at me virtually, you'd think like I was the world's most embattled person in some way, you know, maybe not the world's most, but I'm up in the top 10 maybe. But in my real life,
nice ego.
Then that, like, I don't have any problems. You know, I go around from town to town or from city to city, and
Oh, you have fucking problems, dude. you got fucking problems, man. I've told you guys this a million times. In my 20s, I never did crack, meth, or any of this shit. But I did my fair share of opiates, and I did my fair share of benzos. I was lucky enough to keep my wits about me, and I didn't have this major drop off. Maybe I was just already dumb, and I just stayed as dumb as I was. But Jordan Peterson was like a smart, very passionate guy, and he's just a shell of himself now. And I've heard every story in the book from drug users. I mean, I have people to this day that contact me. Hey, I live in this area. Do you know of, like, what's the best situation that, you know, I'm really ready to help myself. Do you know of any way, like, what's the best way to start? Or what's the best way to go about doing this? Or when I was in that life hearing people's stories, I've never heard a story like Dr. Jordan Peterson's story, where he went to a Toronto hospital because of benzo addiction and woke up. So he went to Toronto. You know, he lives in Toronto, so he went to a hospital in Toronto. And he woke up 2 months later with no recollection, strapped to a table in Russia. I've never heard of that extreme of a case, ever. So yeah, you got issues, bro.
Interaction I have with people on the street is positive. They either don't know me, which is fine.
And my favorite is the people that are like, oh, Dave drugs. And it's like, yeah, you only know because I've told you about it. Dum-dum. You're a dum-dum.
Or they do, and then we have a positive interaction. And I've only had like 3 negative interactions with people in real life in the last 6 years. Like, they stand out because they're not fun, but they're extremely rare. But online, it's like, well, 50% of the people oppose Jordan Peterson. It's like, no, they don't. It's not even 1%.
So he thinks only 1% of people online oppose him. That's a pretty big ego.
So we're building a virtual world that doesn't sample the real world very well, and that's not much different from building a delusion. So, not good. Very, very unsettling. So,
that's Twitter.
Yeah.
Well, it's certainly Twitter before Elon Musk came along.
Yeah, well, Twitter's better, but it's...
Shut the fuck up. That's not Twitter before Elon Musk came along. It might be worse since Elon Musk came along. It's just what Twitter is, man. If you want to go on Twitter, you can go on there and not engage in arguments. You can go in there and not look at your comments. You can go in there and not react to the comments. It's how much effort you want to put into an argument. And an online argument on Twitter will never get anywhere. 1, you're limited in characters, and 2, you're never going to be able to come to like a, oh yeah, I see your point on that one. That's just what Twitter is. That's what online arguments. It's like arguing in the comments in, we'll just say YouTube, but any content site. Like, it's just, that's what it is, man.
Still quite the snake pit.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things I think might be done about that.
Here it comes. Here comes his grand idea, guys. What we all been waiting for.
Yeah, I don't think that I've made this claim on Twitter that there's something cowardly about anonymous posting, and I'm not going to retract that because I believe that in 99% of the cases that's true. Now people say, well, you know, if you're a whistleblower, you have to be anonymous, and what about people in totalitarian states or in a company? Well, same, that's the whistleblowing problem. I think, yeah, 1% of anonymous posters are heroes, but like 80% of them are Machiavellians. And so...
Well, but there's also the factor of people that don't want to get in trouble at work.
Yeah, I know.
Like, it just makes no fucking sense. Like, there's gonna be people that aren't gonna just put their real fucking name on Twitter, dude. Like, I had a Twitter account from years ago that had my real name on it. Not until I was doxxed with my real name that I was like, all right, well, it's already out there. But like, most content creators don't want their actual name out there. Like, people understand why. Like, it's just so fucking dumb, this idea that we need to separate them. And he can't even get his numbers straight. First it was 99%, that now it's 80%. Joe Rogan pushes back. Okay, maybe it's 70%. Like, you haven't thought this idea through. You just got mad because people made fun of you online. People pointed out your Zio shilling. That's what really put him over the edge. He had that 2-week benzo rage period where he just kept going on and on about Israel until finally people were like, shut the fuck up. And he came up with this idea, and he wore an Elon Musk tie, thinking he'd get close to Elon Musk. Maybe we can do something about these anonymous people, or at least get them off my account. I don't care about other people, but can we get them off my account?
No, well, that's kind of the whistleblower problem.
But not even whistleblowers. I mean, people that just have opinions that
You mean that might get them in trouble with the College of Psychologists in Ontario, for example?
Yes.
Yeah, I know. And so, well, I think one of the ways of handling that technically, what I'd like to see happen at Twitter, for example, you know, not that I'm in a position to know because I know it's complicated, is I think the anonymous types should be separated from the real people.
And there you go, folks. The anonymous people, which are real people, should be separated from the real people. Free speech. What's the saying? Rules for me, not for thee, or something. They use that one a lot too. Anyway, I think we're going to end this in a second. I'll play that one last clip because it's very interesting. It has nothing to do with Jordan Peterson, but I'm just looking at what's up for tomorrow's stream. I gotta add some stuff, but I got some. I don't know if it's gonna be a more serious stream or one of these kind of streams. I'm kind of. Maybe a little bit of both, because I got a lot of stuff to get. I got a lot of folders to clear up here, a lot of streams to get through. I'm definitely going to talk about the Alex Sainz stuff, the running for president of the school board, where his grandmother shot a student at the same school. That shit's hilarious. Again. This is from Shams Twitter. I always tell people to follow Shams on Twitter because he puts together great threads, finds great clips, and this is about early on what we're not allowed to talk about, the power of the Jews and how long they've owned stuff and how much control they have. And this isn't a guy that's coming on to like. You know, this guy isn't like anti-Jew. Like, he's just this is like a historian. Not like the historian that Lex Friedman brought on to talk about January 6th, but like an actual historian of early New York and the colonies and how things worked.
Welcoming to Jews. And then you've you've heard of the Spanish Inquisition, and when that came along, a lot of Jews fled Spain and Portugal, and where did they go? They went to Scotland. So.
And you were talking too a little bit earlier about actually the colonization of New York, or the new colonies here. So, and of course, I'm not too shocked coming from New York that with a Jewish influence is there. But tell our audience a little bit about that.
Well, all of the original colonies had significant settlements of Jews, and most of the structure of the government and the business environment, the economic environment, the companies and all were founded by Jews. In the case of New York was actually a corporate enterprise established by the Dutch West Indies Company out of Holland. It was New Netherlands before it was New England, yes. Or New York. And they had a board of directors, which they referred to as just the 14, the 14 people. And
he means the 14 Jews.
And they had a global empire that stretched all around the world. They had monopolies on many of the products, including the spice trade from the East Indies and other things like the sugar or molasses or rum trade in this country. And all of them were Jewish. One of them was named Cohen.
Oh, what do you know? So, from the beginning of... Maybe that's what Crenshaw is talking about. There would be no America without Israel. No, it's just Jews have controlled these things forever, and now they just still have the same amount of control. It's just in different industries. But very interesting clip. Very interesting clip. I enjoy some of these Twitter accounts that find these. I like to find a Sirius XM clip of a random guy talking. Good digging. Shams does very well with that. Oh, forgot to mention. There's also the guy that runs the Babylon Bee. Now, I didn't know if you guys knew this. It gives a whole new context to Babylon now. Now that I know that I never knew he was just a Jewish Zionist. I didn't know he was a Jew. So he comes out and he says, like, well, since I'm already pissing off the Groypers this morning, my other take, interracial marriage should be mandatory for the next 100 years or until we're all the same shade of brown. Maybe could be joking, And they say, well, do you support this for Israel? Which is just a, normal question. And he says, no, as a Jew-loving Zionist, I make an exemption for God's chosen people. So, when you think of Babylon Bee and you think of Babylonia, it kind of gives a whole new meaning to their site and what they push. So, I know it's like a parody site and it's kind of funny sometimes, but they're behind all this shit. And they'll sprinkle in that message anytime they get. But anyways, that's going to do it for tonight. Hope you guys enjoy.